To take a seat over here at the lovely table so we can get this conversation going. And while they're getting seated, you know, there's this image of the undocumented immigrant as someone who arrives in the United States via a tunnel under a wall. How many of you all sort of have relatives who came to the United States on a plane, on a boat? A lot of hands going up, okay? A demographer named Robert Warren, who studied Florida's undocumented population for decades, estimates that more than 60% of undocumented people here arrived on airplanes, okay? That means they overstayed visas. They were visas that were federally granted. According to the Pew Research Center, there were 11 million unauthorized immigrants in the U.S. in 2015, and those numbers are really unclear. 6 states account for more than half of unauthorized immigrants: California, Texas, New York, New Jersey, Illinois, and Florida. So Mexicans may no longer be the majority of U.S. unauthorized immigrants. That's another fact that's coming up. And also the U.S. civilian workforce includes 8 million unauthorized folks. Sister Ann Kendrick, I direct my first question to you. 4 decades in the field, working with people who are navigating this complex system that John has just outlined for us. Can you describe where these people are coming from and the sort of nuances of who they are and how they're arriving here?
Yeah. Lord, Lord, how long, how long, how long? Now, I've been working in this community for 45 years. Again, the same year Mickey Mouse came to town. And I wish I could say things were better, but they're not. I think my job up here is to talk about what it feels like to be the hunted people in our own community. The people that you see at Publix, Bravo, Walmart, people trying to survive, people who are afraid, deathly afraid every morning when they get up, that they will have an encounter with police, which starts with, I don't know if this is exactly answering your question, but
go ahead.
All right, all right.
Yeah.
The place of encounter with law enforcement is people don't have a driver's license. People who've been here for 20 years, U.S. citizen children, no ding on their record, had a driver's license for 15 or 20 years. When it comes renewal time since September 11th, they cannot renew the driver's license because they do not have appropriate immigration documents to indicate that they're in the country legally. We don't live in New York. We don't live where there's a great public transport system. People drive. Your landscape guy can't get to your house without a car. The people that clean your house, the people at the construction sites, the people at the farms, at the nurseries, they cannot get to work. Work is not on a bus line. They drive. Points of encounter, Route 50 and I-4, 429 and the Turnpike are places where everyday ICE authorities, the police, ICE police, are waiting to nab cars. They say it's not entrances to trailer parks. In Apopka, there are a couple of big trailer parks. There are 2 entrances, an entrance and an exit. Daily cars are there waiting, looking, identifying cars, saying it's not racial profiling. It is. I'm not stopped. But if you look a certain way, have a certain kind of car, you will be detained. And that's the beginning. By 5 o'clock, you can be at Chrome in Miami, in the detention center. Or if you're a woman and a family, and you might be in Pompano in Broward County, the detention center. I'd like to use some words. This is serious. This isn't just clients. This is people's lives. This is children who are afraid to go to school. They go to school in the school bus and they're not sure that their parents will be home when they come home. What if my grandmother get taken away? She's the one who watches me till my parents get home from school. PTA meetings, the SAC meetings, Orange County School System. Parents don't go anymore because they're afraid of being apprehended. They're afraid to bring their kids to be in the line going to school because there are cars waiting in other places, identifying cars, taking license plate numbers, and then those people are targeted. These are the words of a poet, a Somali British poet, and this is what she says. No one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. You only run for the border when you see the whole city running as well. You only leave home when home won't let you stay. You have to understand no one puts their children in a boat unless the water is safer than the land. Who would choose to spend days and nights in the stomach of a truck unless the miles traveled meant something more than journey? I want to go home, but home is the mouth of a shark. Home is the barrel of a gun, and no one would leave home unless home chased you to the shore, unless home tells you to leave whatever you could not behind, even if it was human. No one leaves home until home is a damp voice in your ear saying, leave, run now. I don't know what I've become. The people who are here without documents would come legally if they could. They're hungry, they're afraid, they cannot live where they are, they seek life. They jump the border, they get in a boat, they walk the desert. That's the people I know.
That's the people you know. And you describe a situation, you really humanize these people, and behind the headlines, these are people. And to live every day is truly, to survive every day, that's an act of bravery. There have been recent reports of a lot of women who are victims of domestic violence who are afraid to report, that they've been victimized for fear of being deported. You also have these same kids that you described, Sister Ann, who have instructions from their parents, right? About if they get deported, how to pay a bill, who to contact.
We have at least 15 or 20 families that have already come to us, signed power of attorney, giving us legal authority over their children to make decisions about education, about medical care, and putting together money or safety, a place for the children to be protected unless when the parents are, not if, when the parents are detained. We expect it only to get worse. There is no discretion, as our friend here said, there is no discretion anymore. It's nab and detain and deport without question, without opportunity for defense.
Well, let's go into this sort of history of ICE. We talked a bit about this over the phone. Under the Trump administration, the net has really widened for just who is subject to deportation under federal immigration policy. Trump has temporarily extended temporary protected status to Haitians. That's affecting a lot of hospitality workers here in Central Florida who work for Disney. And on Friday, he's expected to make an important announcement about travel restrictions to Cuba, which may affect a lot of Cuban Americans. In your experience, John, with almost, 3 different presidential administrations, almost, is this the most extreme shift that you've witnessed in approaches to immigration, or is it a little bit more nuanced?
This is definitely the most extreme shift, because you almost can't get any more of a dichotomy between how you enforce immigration law as you do between President Obama and President Trump. Because what did President Trump run on? Build the wall and kick out illegal criminal aliens, or all illegal aliens, whatever he said. And so yes, the shift has been amazing. As far as it happened quickly, it happened suddenly, and a lot of my former colleagues, I did a lot of training of immigration officers, and as Sister Ann says, they're out in the field every single day. They have things called fugitive operation teams, where they are out there looking for people who are either deportable or who already have orders of removal. And under President Obama, if you happen to run into the brother of the guy you're looking for and he doesn't have any papers, he said, all right, man, let me check your record. You're not a criminal. Just move on. All right, go take care of your family. Go take care of your kids. We're not looking for you. Under President Trump, collaterals, as we would call them, because it's collateral damage, collaterals are taken into. So every single person you encounter who doesn't have status is being either given a notice to appear to go to court, but more often it's, here's your notice to appear to go to court. We're going to send you to BTC in Pompano Beach. You're going to go to Chrome. You're going up to Baker County. You're getting detained. And a lot of the judges are not letting people out of custody anymore. Because just like criminal court, you could be fighting your case while you're in jail or you're out of jail. You can fight your immigration case in or out of jail. And right now, detain, detain, detain. I mean, they have doubled the amount of bed space they are using on a daily basis within ICE over the last 6 months. It's usually about 34,000 people are detained every single day. They've doubled that, and they're asking for funding to go to about 75,000 people or more to detain every single day.
Can you speak to the time in which ICE really began to get all of this funding to be able to do all of this stuff? That precedes Trump, right?
It does. 2003 is when the Department of Homeland Security was created out of 9/11, and that's when ICE was created. It used to be INS. We always knew it before as INS. And they started to pump money into the system, and they greatly expanded the number of attorneys, the number of judges, the number of ICE officers, the number of CBP officers, and it was ramping up from 2006 all the way into President Obama's administration. And so you've seen this gigantic wave of detentions and deportations, and President Obama had kind of pushed back on that and really focused on border security, but that money has always been there. And that money is just moved around to different type of priorities. And right now, the priorities for President Trump are interior enforcement. Finding people who are already in the United States, sometimes for decades, sometimes who have strong ties to the community, and detaining them and deporting them if they are deported.
Rasha.
I go to work in the morning and there are people waiting at the door to say that their husband went out to work and he never came home. And they don't know where he is. And where he is in detention someplace. They're down on Consulate Drive by 441 is the holding place, but they can't keep people overnight there. The bus comes every afternoon, brought down from Jacksonville by about 5 o'clock, picks people up and takes them to Pompano or Crone. The guy went out to work in the morning. Family, without the wage earner, without the parent, every day.
That's it's heartbreaking. Rasha, there is actually a lot of momentum on the ground. You're a part of a group that just formed an alliance of organizations, Trust Orlando. Can you talk a bit about the sort of relationships that you all are trying to leverage between law enforcement and local groups to ensure that folks are protected here?
Absolutely. So Trust Orlando actually has been in the works for a few months now, since the new administration has hit the ground running. And we just launched, was it a couple of weekends ago, Saturday. And Trust Orlando is compiled of over 34 organizations in Central Florida. And they're standing together to uphold the principles, and we're asking that law enforcement agencies to not comply with ICE. And these law enforcement agencies have agreed, from the Orlando Police Department, from Orange County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Demings has been profoundly standing and saying that we will not comply with ICE for various reasons. One, they don't have the resources or the funding, right? Yeah.
The key here is they don't have the resources or the funding.
And it's morally courageous, right?
Right.
So they want nothing to do with that. And it's interesting that we're seeing with, Sister Anna's organization's part of this, and we've done a lot of behind the scenes and seeing a lot of these families. We have Commissioner Ortiz, who's championing this, Trust Orlando, who's going to be pushing it and making sure that this is passed in the city of Orlando. But we've also worked with Senator Victor Torres, Representative Amy Mercado, Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith on a statewide Trust Act, of Florida's Trust Act. So these are people that are true champions of justice, that are fighting unconditionally, because what's going on during these ugly times will define us for years to come. We have to ask ourselves, what side of justice, what page in the history book do we want to be on? This is the same state sanctioned bigotry that we're seeing over and over, and I'm going to call it what it is. It is a Muslim ban. If we're going to call these things what they are, it is a Muslim ban, it is discriminatory against the immigrant community. We have to remember that this country, people arrived here in 1620, fleeing religious persecution, landing on Plymouth Rock. This is the country that we value our principles, and we have to remember that intention is so critical. Intention is so important. When the then candidate, President Trump, sorry, I'm going on.
It's okay.
He first commissioned the Muslim ban to Mayor Giuliani. He said, how do I legalize a Muslim ban? So his intention was clear, and it did not legally muster the first time around, the second time around. And why is intention so important and so critical is because in these communities, it's creating fear and division and hate, Islamophobia, xenophobia against immigrant communities. And it's not so much that thousands of people have been deported in comparison to the old administration to the new administration, there's only a few hundred, but what's real is the fear. It's like you said, Renata, that people are in the immigrant community are fearful to call 911 if they are a victim of domestic violence or facing any kind of criminalization and they're a victim. People are fearful. And we have to understand the reality of it, and we have to stand on the right side and remember that intention is so critical and that we have to continue. And it's such a, I mean, can we give this guy a round of applause? Like, it's such, I think, a proud moment for him and other attorneys. At CAIR-Florida, we have free legal, we just hired a new immigration attorney because of what's going on. And to people in the judiciary courts, because they are the ones striking this kind of bigotry down. They're the ones at the airports to arrive to people that are being detained.
Well, let's take a moment, Rasha, to sort of unpack how the immigration policy is applied here. Something that you brought up was very powerful. Two threads of thought. You've got the lack of financial resources that keeps local law enforcement from being able to enforce immigration policy, and then federal judges saying, hey, this is illegal. And then you've got the moral thread. John, can you speak to the resources question? Just in a recent interview, I spoke with Bob Boltieri, who's over Pinellas County. They have a relationship there with the Department of Justice, in which the Department of Justice leases the county jail, and they work directly with law enforcement to detain people who may have been called in because they didn't have a license plate, to sort of keep them in detention, which is illegal. So can you talk about the resources question?
Sure. The sanctuary cities argument kind of dovetails with this, and there's many definitions of what a sanctuary city is, but primarily where ICE and President Trump get upset about sanctuary cities is when local law enforcement won't honor ICE detainers. So someone, and whether you know it or not, every time someone's booked into a jail, is certainly in Florida and pretty much the entire country, they take fingerprints. Immediately. They upload it to the FBI database, which immediately shares it with the Department of Homeland Security, which then runs the database, runs the biometrics of the fingerprints against their database, and if they think the person is someone who's not here legally, they'll put a detainer on them almost instantaneously. So this happens at all 67 jails within Florida for sure, and most of the jails in the country. And then if that detainer is put on that person, many jails will honor the detainer, some will not. And that's where the real argument comes into play, because the president says, oh, you have to honor these detainers, these are violent, dangerous criminals who are also here in violation of the law, of immigration law. And then you look at it and say, oh, that guy overstayed a visa by 4 days and doesn't have a driver's license. Really? We're going to waste resources on that? Now, there are people who committed some horrible acts who also happen to not be citizens, and those detainers are put on those individuals, and that should be where discretion comes in. The sheriff should say, listen, this guy's charged with murder, and the judge gave him a bond, maybe we should honor this ICE detainer. Okay, maybe that's a good idea. But again, it shouldn't be a blanket policy of let's detain absolutely everybody who has a detainer put on them. Why? Because of resources. Do you think ICE pays the local jails to detain an individual for 48 hours or more until they come to pick them up? No. If you accidentally put a detainer on a United States citizen and hold them in violation of law, do you think ICE is going to be a defendant in that federal lawsuit and or give money to the jail for their screw up? Absolutely not. And ICE will tell you that. Oh, by the way, detainers aren't mandatory. It's really just a request. I've had to tell local jails that when I worked for ICE. Oh, by the way, we're not going to indemnify you if we screw up or you screw up. Please honor our detainers. You think that went over well? No. So it is about resources. Financially, always go back to the pocketbook. There's moral arguments, there's right and wrong, and there's finances. And that argument will play across the political spectrum.
And as we speak, sheriffs are trying to create relationships where they do receive the resources to be able to cooperate actively with ICE. Rasha, you brought up something really powerful about the rifts that it's caused within the community. And I say community because there is no one image of an immigrant. You know, we talk about profiling, Sister and Kendrick. Can you sort of unpack the sort of repercussions that just the idea of profiling an individual based on their skin color can have for the Central Florida community and statewide, nationally?
Well, racial profiling is illegal. I mean, it is discriminatory. It is a violation of people's human rights. Period.
Yes, girl.
Period. 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 You know, I get stopped. I forgot my purse. I didn't have my license. I don't get cuffed. I don't get treated in a rude, vulgar manner with slurs that's thrown at me. I don't get taken to 33rd Street. When they go to 33rd Street, this is for no driver's license. Not drunk driving, not drugs, not an accident. Simply no valid driver's license. They get put into the prison, to the jail population. Strip search, the whole deal, and then you have to bail them out. And if they have a detainer on them, you bail them out for the $250 or whatever it costs to get them out for the no driver's license. But then they can't get out because there's now a federal hold on them. So you've lost always. You follow the money. The car gets towed because they're little sweetheart deals with these record companies. Pick up the car. And by 5 o'clock, if you don't get the car out, you're looking at $1,000 every day. And who's got the papers? Because those cars are usually registered to their uncle who lives, in Washington State or someplace where you can register a car if you don't have a driver's license. You're looking at thousands and thousands of dollars. And I think we also need to say that a lot of the detention centers in the country, they're private prisons. And all of this criminalization of immigration faults, is follow the money. Follow the money. You have every black person that you can get in jail, in prison. Okay, now what's the next market? Ooh, we could imprison all the immigrants. That's a market. That's a little place we could harvest and make some more money. Follow the money, and you see who's behind it.
Yeah, I mean, you're on the money with that one. No pun intended. There's a few things that I want to get into. I really want to open up the conversation to the audience momentarily because I think it's important. But one thing that came up was healthcare for folks who don't have it, undocumented immigrants. And, I hesitate to even use that because people sometimes do have documents. So people who are here legally, if you want to call it that. Can one of you speak to the ways in which people get treatment? Is primarily through the ER or through,
Grace Medical, Shepherd's Hope, the free places, doctors that are willing to see people. If you're undocumented, you do not qualify for any kind of assistance. Your U.S. citizen children can get Medicaid, but you cannot. People go without attention. Shepherd's Hope is a good one. Grace Medical Center is a good one. The community health centers, which it's a group that we helped start like 1,000 years ago. They will see people on a sliding scale, but there is not the emergency room, which is not a great solution.
Yeah, I was one of my coworkers was telling me about dialysis treatment, and the idea that if you want to get some dialysis treatment, a lot of times if you don't have access to those informal networks going to the ER, you would have to have a certain level of potassium. So some people risk their lives by eating a banana to get their potassium level up just to see the doctor. Then you have these unique health conditions for farm workers, such as exposure to the sun. You got pregnant women out in the sun working, exposure to pesticide. It's just a whole series.
With papers or without papers, those farm workers don't get the help they need.
They don't get it. Is there anything that you all want to add before we open things up? Maybe we should open the conversation up. Rasha, I still want to talk about the Muslim ban because that's incredibly important. CAIR was just in D.C., correct? Lobbying. Can you talk a bit about that?
CAIR-Florida was also on the lawsuit against Trump and the Muslim ban, and it's really like John said, sometimes it takes the legal actions to take place. But whether building a wall or trying to establish a Muslim registry, everything is just discriminatory. So we've been lobbying on DC and Tallahassee, wherever we are, to tell our elected officials that they need to stand with all communities. And this is a country that not only, yes, people are migrated here, but some people were forcefully moved to this country. And remembering that the history of our country, remembering that what our American values stand for. So asking our elected officials, and it's not just also to morally stand, but it's also to, if you are an elected official, you have a responsibility of being a PR campaign for those people that are unheard. Because our community tends to follow the lead of elected officials, of community leaders, of the following the media. So you have a responsibility to say no against hate and against Islamophobia. And what we're saying is creating this xenophobic climate against the immigrant community and the Muslim community is here in Central Florida, Islamophobia is up by 1,000%. After the Muslim ban, CAIR-Florida received double the phone calls in just 1 month. We went from 80 calls to 160 calls. So these are people trying to get into the country, leave the country. It's real. We're not asking people to get scared and despair, but to be cautious and to remember that there's always, but at the end of the day, what we know is Trust Orlando, is these lawyers, Hope Community Center, is thousands of people marched at the airports and said no. So there is mercy in adversity, there's power in pain, and to remember that those are the true American values and standing up for what's right, and there's always that silver lining and continuing to be on the forefront in that way.
We also before the state legislative session started, there were 8 anti-immigrant bills pre-filed. We didn't make any positive ground this year, but we defeated those. Not one of those was passed.
Along that thread, in the wake of the Pulse nightclub shooting, you had a lot of women and men who were undocumented and were victims, of that attack. And a lot of them sat in fear that perhaps they might not be able to receive any sort of money from the city or join litigation that would protect them and their families. But there were organizations, Proyecto Somos Orlando, one of them, that stepped in and said, hey, no matter what your status, you're the victim of a tragedy, and therefore, we stand with you, and those families did get money. So they're very much, the local ground game here in Central Florida is strong, and I just gotta highlight that Florida is a very important state, and a lot of states, a lot of communities are looking locally to what's being done here.
If I can just add, Renata, is that kind of just a romanticizing of our vetting system and really trying to make it seem, we have the most safe and extreme vetting system in the world. Like, people that are refugees from the Iraq war in 1992 are still trying to come here. And the Syrian refugees that have made it out here are people that are injured or have a sick family member. Of the 750,000 refugees that came into this country post 9/11, only 2 of them posed any kind of terrorist threat outside the country. This is a real fact. I know it sounds silly when I say it, I feel silly when I say it, but it speaks so much truth. You are more likely to die by setting your own clothes on fire than by a refugee in this country. And that is a real fact, and that is a real statistic. Of the 750,000 refugees that came into this country, only 2 of them posed any kind of terrorist threat outside of the country.
I don't know, Renata, I brought a colleague, a co-worker, Anayeli Becerra, who is undocumented, who is a DACA student, and who can speak what we're doing in a possible, we have to do something, all right? So we have a game plan. I don't know if she could just say a few things about what she's doing.
She's a power.
I welcome all voices. I think that's an important voice to the mix.
Stand up, girl.
You want to step here?
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here, and thank you for having me. Yes, like Sister Ann said, I am a undocumented student. I'm a DACA recipient.
Where are you going to school? What are you doing?
Right now, I am a student at Seminole State College. I got a scholarship to go and get my undergrad at UCF, so I'll be starting next spring. And I'm doing an anthropology major, but I want to be an immigration attorney, hopefully one day like Mr. John right here. And to keep fighting for this, because this doesn't start here, it does not end here, and it's going to keep going, so I want to be an advocate for long term. But right now, I'm the immigration program community organizer at Hope, so my job is to educate the community about what their rights are. Because a lot of our community thinks that because of all this dehumanization, they think that they don't have rights. but they do. Everybody in this country has rights, and we want to make sure that they know them. So we go out into the communities, we go to schools, we go to churches, to their neighborhoods, wherever we can, and we tell them their rights in situations like in their home, their car, work, and if they're walking, to give them some type of empowerment. Also, we're doing what we're calling the Dignity and Protection Plan, which is a collection of documents that can prove their stance here in the U.S., that can save them probably from expedite deportation, or can help them in their case if they're ever detained, so they can prove that they're worthy and that they have dignity to be here. They've worked very hard and they deserve to fight their case. And so we have immigration fairs with immigration attorneys, and we do everything that we can, honestly, to make sure these people know that they're not alone and that we're here with them. And especially me, I know the pain. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Open the floor for questions. If anybody has any direct questions for you or any of the panelists, please do not hesitate to step to the microphone.
If anybody wants to volunteer, they